Hey guys, what is up? This is Matthew Davis, me once again. Welcome back to another movie review, continuing on with my horror movie review series. This time I'm going to be reviewing Nosferatu, otherwise known as Nosferatu, A Symphony of Horror. Now, this is a silent horror film that came out way back in 1922, making this year its 100th anniversary, so this would be the perfect time for me to review it, especially since it's the Halloween season. Now, in this film, we follow Count Orlok, played by Max Schreck. It's pronounced differently. Like, this is how it's pronounced. It's not pronounced like the Shrek. Like, it might actually be pronounced differently, but most people are probably gonna say Shrek. Max Schreck. Imagine Shrek playing a vampire. That would be weird. But anyways, Count Orlok, who summons Thomas Hutter, the protagonist of the movie, to Orlok's remote Transylvanian castle in the mountains. The eerie Orlok seeks to buy a house from Hutter and his wife, specifically across from Hutter and his wife. After Orlok reveals his vampire nature, Hutter struggles to escape the castle, knowing that Ellen is in grave danger. And meanwhile, Orlok's servant Knock, yeah, that's actually what his name is, Knock, and it's the regular, but yeah, the names in this movie are very weird, but prepares for his master to arrive at his new home. Now, like I mentioned before, this is a silent film, as well as it being a vampire film. Now, this was before Dracula came to the big screen for the very first time in the 30s, though it's by the same author, so you could probably say they're kind of the same. Except the story of Nosferatu is a tad bit more different, and the style of him is way more different as well. I mean, just look at this guy. This guy is freaky. Also, if you don't know who Nosferatu is, then you probably might remember him from that one episode of SpongeBob, where SpongeBob and Squidward are working the night shift, and by the end of the episode, the guy who was flicking the lights was Nosferatu. So yeah, even if you've never heard of him, you probably heard of him from that. But yeah, he's actually a real character, and he has an actual movie. And 100 years later, I still consider this movie a classic. While, yes, it's a very, very old film, and this was way before film started talking, this movie was still very unsettling and very unnerving when it was released. The performances all around, despite them not showing their voices, it still managed to have some very top-notch performances. Max Schreck alone is fantastic as Count Orlok, and the movie's low budget made the movie seem like it's pretty much nothing to this day, while today, I definitely feel like it needs to be recognized as something that we probably would have never have gotten with vampire movies nowadays. I know that sounds a little bit weird the way I put it, but what I'm saying is this movie needs to be respected for capitalizing on the vampire genre. You know, with films like Dracula, Bram Stoker's Dracula, the 1992 film, and of course Fright Night, and all these other vampire films. This needs to be respected for capitalizing on the genre. And the movie doesn't always seem like it focuses on Count Orlok that much. It focuses on other characters, some guys on a ship, and there are some elements involving around the plague as it spreads out and people have to stay inside their homes. And while this guy Hutter is trying to protect his wife, trying to get home to his wife before Orlok does strange things because he has a thirst for blood. And of course, he never has a voice that we hear. So of course, you can't imagine like what exactly he's saying, like, I want to suck your blood. But that's okay because it never needed sound. All you really hear is the music. And the music makes the movie even more unnerving, especially with its color themes, like its color, like, how do I put them, like filters, because there are, specifically everything is like in black and whatever color is on the screen. Sometimes it's green, sometimes it's yellow, sometimes it's blue. It really makes the movie more effective. And having more of a color-ish scheme rather than just a black and white tone makes it more unique. And this is on a very low budget too, because all that the actors had back then was a camera, and not like a regular type of camera, the one that you have to like a Super 8 camera pretty much. Like, You have to like roll the film, and of course, all they had were the costumes in the background and the makeup for Orlok. That's all that they had, and they still managed to really pull it off here. It's a really nice looking film. Like Orlok, just he looks realistic. Like he never needed crappy CGI makeup. No, the makeup effects I thought were very effective, and it's not a gory film either. Like back then, most horror films can't really get away with that much blood. The only time we actually do see blood is when Hutter like cuts his finger, and then Orlok just grabs his finger and just licks the blood off. Yeah, and Orlok is freaky in this movie. And with all the attention to detail and with all the, I guess, lack of dialogue, makes the movie more effective. I mean, there is, of course, the text boxes, but there really isn't that many text boxes. The way the movie tells its story is by showing you like pages that look like they're straight from a book. And that honestly kind of makes the movie a bit easier to follow, because nowadays you just have to think with your mind about what's fully going on with the story, but it tells you. Also, it's divided into acts, like there's acts 1 through 5. So yeah, this movie is very, very old compared to what we have nowadays, but the movie needs to be respected as this classic film that brought vampires to the big screen. I'm not sure if it was the first vampire film to ever be created. It might be. I'm not entirely sure. There might have been something else. All that I know is that back then horror movies were in black and white or black and whatever, and they didn't have sound. All they had was music, and they didn't have all those jump scares or all that blood. And Nosferatu definitely shows that, as well as other films like Freaks and Cabinet of Dr. Caligari and all those other films. They need to be respected for being such great films without having all that blood and all that special effects in the movie. Like, I feel like films definitely got more of that later down the line. I mean, obviously, because movie budgets got much bigger later down the line. But yeah, in the end, Nosferatu is still an incredible film, and first viewing, it's definitely going to feel unsettling. Though watching it nowadays compared to other films, you might not think it's much, but trust me, this movie was very influential, and it revolutionized the vampire horror genre. And this is the remastered version. Like, the text boxes are a lot more smoother now. There are a lot more, it's not like in the picture, so yeah, it's not really as effective. Like, I definitely recommend watching an older version, but still, watch this in the dark too. Like, you'll definitely feel a difference. And even though it's very slow, its attention to detail really makes it very suspenseful. And the performances, they all make the movie feel like an actual, horror film. And it really makes the film feel more horrific. And that's what the movie is to me. It's a masterpiece of silent filmmaking without all the uses of dialogue or sound effects. All that it had was a camera and music and text boxes, pretty much. And it needs to be respected for that. To this day, I still think it's worth a watch. It's a very, very unsettling film that is still very effective, and it's scarier than most of the films that just focus on jump scares nowadays. Like, there's a difference. Like, this movie was very unsettling first time I watched it, and even nowadays, it's still. But yeah, what more can I say? It's a work of art, and you need to respect it for it. Even if you're not really a fan, it needs your respect, because, hey, what would we do without these types of horror films? We probably wouldn't ever have horror films, but, I mean, we probably still would have, but, hey, it's an amazing film nonetheless, and it's one of my favorite vampire films of all time. If silent movies really aren't your thing, then hey, there is a talkative version of this movie, as there was a remake that came out like 55, it came out in the 70s, so it came out like half a century later, which I might review that as well. So yeah, because it's just as good. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I will be continuing on with my horror movie review series, and yeah, see you guys later. Word out.